If you know anything about Shirobako, you probably know that it's a show about an anime studio, and that a lot of the characters are directly based on real people in the anime industry. You might also know that it can be a very dense and stress-inducing experience, as you watch the way that breakdowns in communication and human error lead a project into a downward spiral of chaos. And in the early episodes, much of that breakdown is the result of one massive idiot, called Takanashi Taro. Taro-kun has a personality built to piss you off. He always says the wrong thing, always looks for the quickest way out, self-aggrandizes 1 minute and pleads like a child the next, and does it all without any sense of guilt. You hope that he'll learn from his mistakes and change his attitude, but he never does. Sure, he's not technically fucking up constantly, but if everyone around him wasn't dragging him along, he'd gladly stick behind where no one could see that he's doing nothing. Yet as enraging as Taro can be, he is a core function of allowing Shirobako to tell its story in the tone that it's going for. Right away, if you can't tell, the central conceit of this show is that it's simultaneously an extremely realistic representation of the inner workings of the anime industry, frequently quoting the very people working on it for their advice on how to survive therein, while also being an over-the-top comedy, which very carefully rubber bands reality in places for the sake of the joke. You can see it right away in the fact that the 5 main characters are super cute girls that start off in a situation obviously resembling that of a moe club show like K-On! Before getting dumped into the tired reality of adulthood, alongside very normal-looking people, on a sliding scale of anime attractiveness. In order for Shirobako to accomplish what it's going for, it walks a constant tightrope of sincerity and insincerity, never going too far in the direction of sappiness except for in moments when it's completely earned, and also never getting too ridiculously chaotic, because you have to be able to actually feel the stress and not simply laugh at it. This is the art of bathos, and I don't think there's any other anime which handles it so deftly. And that's because there's no greater master of the concept than director Tsutomu Mizushima, whom when asked which character from the show was most like himself, said that he had once been just like Taro. I was not surprised to learn this because I did so having already seen Mayo-Iga, which seemingly had the same effect on its audience that Taro does, but without an entire show full of likable characters to balance against him. In fact, you could say Mayo-Iga was like if Shirobako was almost exclusively Taro's. Mizushima had worked on 2 kinds of shows other than these ones, outrageously over-the-top comedy ones, and outrageously over-the-top violent horror shows that he also treats like comedies. I am now going to use my PhD in applied psychology and 8-wave new type powers to read Tsutomu Mizushima's mind. Even though Taro might be a complete piece of shit, there's a reason he's actually capable of doing his job well enough not to get fired. Taro understands people implicitly. He is very good at figuring out someone's intention, and extremely direct about confronting them. It's just that he tends to automatically choose the most obnoxious interpretation or phrasing that he could go with in his response. A lot of what Taro says would be legitimately hilarious if not for the inappropriate context, which is perfect for us viewers, because we can both laugh at the things he says since the situation isn't happening to us, while also getting angry along with the other characters that their progress is being impeded by this moron. It doesn't take long for Taro to become a verbal punching bag for pretty much everyone in the studio, but he never takes any of it badly and never changes his behavior. Taro exhibits all signs of narcissistic personality disorder, an inflated sense of self-importance, requiring constant attention and praise, exaggerating his talents, preoccupied with fantasies of extreme success, constantly aware of the perceived social status of people around him, monopolizing conversations and belittling people he thinks he can, expecting favors without question, taking advantage of others to get what he wants, envious of others and believes others envy him, arrogant, conceited, boisterous, pretentious, and impatient. The only traits common to people with this disorder that aren't shown in Taro are the secret insecurities, the tendency, when not under observation, to regress into feelings of complete worthlessness. NPD is an extreme personality disorder with a lot of similarities to borderline personality disorder, both of which can best be described as bathos incarnate, people who tend to interpret the events in their life as either exaltedly exciting or depressingly painful, or to expect life to constantly provide them some kind of attention or entertainment because they just can't be at peace. I've met people on all extremes of the spectrum, and Taro isn't portrayed as nearly so emotionally out of control as a lot of real people are, which is probably because he's actually in the perfect environment for someone like him. Rewatching Shirobako with Digi, it dawned on me that this show is a call to action and an advertisement for working in the anime industry. It wants you to see how stressful and chaotic things usually are, and what kind of fuck-ups and morons you're going to have to deal with. But it also shows you what happens when you persevere, when the right people with the right mindset get involved and start spreading their influence over their surroundings. And it tells you exactly what kind of people they need, in the same way anime artists always do, by turning them into a cute girl and making a show about them. The anime industry is in constant need of good people in order for it to become better, and through examining every link in the chain, we can see how people with extremely different personalities are all necessary to the studio ecosystem. Most important of all, of course, are the project managers, the ligaments holding the entire structure together on the backs of whom absolutely everything falls on some level. They trade off taking the brunt of responsibility that the director would for a total lack of control and much less pay. While the PMs can affect the creative output of a series in many subtle ways, ultimately their job is just the facilitation of everything that everyone else is doing. And doing it means on some level learning the needs of every single type of person that you could conceivably involve yourself with in the industry. Miyamori is a born desk, as the other characters are quick to point out while they escalate her responsibilities rapidly over the course of the year. Her motivation is just simply that she wants good anime to exist, and she will learn and do anything she has to do in order to facilitate that. Every aspect of anime production blows her mind, and she gets more and more excited at the thought of how putting in a little extra work will make it even better. In many ways, she is a dangerous influence on the studio. We see how this could have been even more problematic back in the older, smaller days of the studio, when its now president Marukawa was in the same position Miyamori is in now, and was driving the artist crazy with the ways he kept inspiring people to complicate their work further and making it better. But a person like this, whose touch is just enough to keep the production from fucking up, while also leaving everyone proud of what they did, is like a dream. A horny idea in the minds of a bunch of old men who've been wrung through this industry for way too long. Taro is much closer to the reality of what this person would be like. Constantly throwing out dumbass suggestions, needing to be reminded what to do and put in his place constantly, and completely failing at the sensitive communication often required with artists. But that's all kind of forgivable because ultimately, he is still a ligament in this system. He is still someone with the simple desire to facilitate anime, albeit with unreasonably grandiose ideas of what that could lead to. And even if he doesn't do the job as well as someone else might have, he's still a hand on deck in a world that constantly struggles to put hands on deck. Sure, he's kind of insufferable, but he also doesn't seem to care if you shit on him and push him around, so in the end he finds himself essentially serving as a stress vacuum for the rest of the staff. Yeah, a lot of the stress is his fault, but if you need somewhere to stop the blame buck, why not stop it on Taro? He's definitely not going to make you regret it in how he responds. If Taro was really bad enough to be unusable, he'd be fired, but he's not. Is this an abusive relationship on both sides? Absolutely. But it's really not Taro's fault things are like this either. After all, he's just copying the laziness of the many other people leading these productions as well. And there's no doubt that having good people like Miyamori around to direct him more effectively is making the best use of this human that anyone would probably be capable of. Just imagine how much worse he could have been around the wrong people. Ultimately, the only real difference between Taro and Miyamori is their level of dissociation. Miyamori's bipolarity is represented in her innocently emotional and hard-nosed rational selves arguing internally, while she projects the image of effectiveness and efficiency that she needs to on the surface. Taro doesn't have these inner conversations, he just says it out loud. I think if you want to ride the bathos tide with the smooth style that writer Yokote Michiko and director Mizushima have mastered over the course of their career and perfected in Shirobako. You have to find a happy medium between them. You can find a happy medium between giving me none and all of your money by paying for my hentai reviews on the Digibro Unzipped OnlyFans page, and by supporting this channel on Patreon. Thanks again for watching.